craving and how to end craving. There are these three cravings: craving for sensuality, craving for becoming, and craving for non-becoming. So craving for sensuality, we all know what that is. Craving through sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touch, and thoughts. You know, we all like to see pretty things. A beautiful flower, a lovely bird sitting in the tree. We like to hear the sound of the bird song. Quite nice to hear the birds outside your window singing in the morning. All pleasant things that we constantly seek after. We like nice smells. We like to eat nice tasting food. We like to feel comfortable in our body. We like the temperature to be just right, or sometimes you're outside and there's a nice breeze starts to blow. It feels wonderful. We seek after these things. These are the essential desires that we seek after. And then there's the desire for becoming. The desire for becoming, this is the kind of thing that eternalists want. Eternalism is all about being reborn in heaven for an eternity. So they have this desire for becoming. Actually, there's some crazy people out there. Some people have got a desire. They say to me, "Oh yeah, I'd like to be reborn again as a dolphin." Well, that's an animal rebirth. And we need to be very careful what we desire for, because we can come back as an animal if that's what our desire. We have a strong desire to be reborn as an animal. We can be reborn as an animal. So there's this desire for becoming, and then there's a desire for non-becoming. These are your nihilists. They believe that after this life there is no more. It's all over. It's finished. And these are people we see committing suicide sometimes. Life is too hard for them. And they believe that if they kill themselves, it's all over. No more suffering, no more pain for them. This is a desire for non-becoming. A lot of people see death as a blessing. Oh, well, at least all my pain will be over. I won't have to suffer anymore. So this is a desire for non-becoming. It's a craving. And all the time we have these cravings. We're caught in the snare of Mara. Because it's these very cravings that keep us on the cycle of samsara. Craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming. They're both cravings that keep us stuck in the cycle of birth, aging, sickness and death. So the craving for becoming is actually when we have desire for sense pleasures we want repeated over and over again. And this is a craving for becoming. Gives birth to a craving for becoming. And ill will, those things that we don't like, this is what gives us a craving for non-becoming, because we don't want things to arise that we dislike. But there are wholesome cravings as well. Wanting to become an arahant, for instance, or a sotapanna, is a craving. But it's a wholesome craving, it's a wholesome desire. But even with wholesome desires, we have to be a little bit careful about how we go about pursuing these wholesome desires. Because otherwise we can trick ourselves into thinking that we have become an arahant. You can check the internet out, just Google arahant, and you'll come up with a whole lot of web pages of arahants. I'll tell you how they became an arahant, what they were doing when they became an arahant. They'll get very angry when you tell them that they're not an arahant, which is often a good sign that somebody's not an arahant. But they can actually fool themselves into thinking that they're an arahant. So these sensual desires, these things that we like, these things that we crave after, they give birth to the concept of becoming. When everything's going well for us, when everything is nice in our life, why would we want to let go of life? We want to continue when everything's all rock and roll and rosy. But then when we have things that we dislike, that's when we want things to stop. And that's where the desire for non-becoming kicks in. So it's interesting that, becoming and not becoming, they're a bit of a paradox, because they basically lead to the same place. They keep us stuck in the cycle of samsara. So it shouldn't be too difficult for us to get out of craving, to be honest, because craving comes from ignorance. And since we have the teachings of the Buddha, we should no longer be ignorant. Majjhima Nikaya says craving is an arrow in the heart. The poison of ignorance spreads its toxin through desire, passion, and ill will. 6 classes of cravings. Craving for forms, those are things that we see. Craving for sounds, craving for odours, craving for flavours, craving for tangibles, and craving for mind objects. The Itivuttaka says, monks, I don't envision even one other fettered by which beings conjoined go wandering and transmigrating on for a long, long time, like the fetter of craving. Fettered with the fetter of craving, beings conjoined go wandering and transmigrating on for a long, long time. Bound with the bondage of craving, their minds smitten with becoming and non-becoming, they are bound with the bondage of Mara. People with no safety from bondage, beings going through the wandering on, headed for rebirth. While those who have abandoned craving, free from the craving for becoming and non-becoming, reaching the end of fermentations, though in the world have gone beyond. That's your arahant. He's still in the world, but he's gone beyond craving. So it's quite clear here that, the fetter of craving is what keeps us wandering on, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. It says we're bound with the bondage of Mara. Can't escape the bondage of Mara.
Arahant doesn't get angry at all, is it?
No.
Never totally, not even a little bit.
No.
There's no way to make them angry.
No.
Like maybe even they do something wrong and then they feel it and then they show you that they're angry. Arahant never feel that.
No. You will find, if you read some of the suttas, it sounded like the Buddha got a bit angry at times. When the monk, decided that he was going to disrobe if the Buddha didn't answer his questions about, is the universe finite or infinite? The 10 questions, if the Blessed One refuses, won't answer me, then I'm going to disrobe. So he went to the Buddha and he posed these questions, and he said, if the Tathagata doesn't tell me this, he said, I'm going to disrobe. And the Buddha just looked at me and went, you stupid man. Did I tell you if you put the robes on? That I would tell you if the world was finite or infinite? So it sounds like the Buddha was angry. But in actual fact, the Buddha knew how to speak to that particular monk. Because that monk didn't disrobe. And that monk eventually became an arahant himself. So while it might sound like an arahant is angry with the way he speaks to a person, he knows the mind of the person, so he knows how to talk to that particular person. But no, they wouldn't get angry because they've broken those fetters. See, anger is caused by ego.
Oh, anger is caused by ego.
Yeah.
Is it just now you mentioned craving? Does it belong to craving, anger?
No. But as you progress, you see, you have craving, you have desire, these sorts of things. Now, what happens is, let's say I want a Ferrari. Now, technically speaking, there's nothing wrong with it. Probably something wrong with a monk wanting a Ferrari, but there's nothing wrong with a layperson wanting a Ferrari. That's fine. You're allowed to want a Ferrari. But you might not be able to afford a Ferrari. So now if we can just say to ourselves, well, I'd like to have a Ferrari, but I think I'm going to have to buy a Toyota and be happy with that, then that's fine. But some people might go out and steal the Ferrari, because of the craving for the Ferrari. They've taken it up a little step, and anger can come in the same way. It's not fair. He's got a Ferrari. Why haven't I got a Ferrari? And so, anger eventually through craving, anger can arise. But you're taking it up each step, and anger, sort of takes place in us. But as I say, there's no harm. You want to live in a nice house. There's nothing wrong with wanting to live in a nice house. But you might only have enough money for an apartment. And so we have to be happy with the fact that we can afford an apartment to live in, as opposed to a cardboard box. And some people would probably be quite happy with a cardboard box, 4 walls and a roof, as opposed to sleeping underneath a bridge. So it's okay to desire things, but we have to be careful where that desire goes. You know? We take it too far. And with the anger and the ego, why do we get angry?
Because some people get angry over very minor things.
They do. But
Is it ego? What's their
yes,
problem?
it's ego.
It's ego?
They've got an ego
They have an ego
problem.
problem.
And so, you know, somebody says something that they don't like, you know, and they get angry. It's like, I didn't like what he said.
Yeah.
You know?
What's the problem?
Notice, I didn't.
That I think.
The I thing. I didn't like what he said about me, you know, and stuff like that. And so the ego gives rise to the anger. So when we can cut the ego off, we can cut the anger off.
So they have the ego problem.
They have a big ego problem. This is what causes anger, you know.
Okay, that causes anger.
And the Anguttara Nikaya, it says, and what is the cause by which stress comes into play? Dukkha. Craving is the cause by which stress comes into play. So it's what I was saying, you know, we want the nice house or we want the nice car, and then we can't get it, so we start to get stressed out. And you can see where this is leading us to, now we're going to start getting angry or irrational. As I say, you know, we can steal things. You know, you see somebody, you know, you wanted the nice car, but you can't afford one. You see somebody else with the same nice car that you wanted, so you take the key of your Toyota out and you run it down the side of his nice Ferrari to scratch his paintwork, because it's not fair. He's got a Ferrari and I haven't. I've got a Toyota, you know. And so we start to do some silly things, and this is based. It comes from the craving. It's all developing up from the craving. You know, we want this, we can't have it, and we don't let go, and so we crave it, and then we get stupid. So, cutting the roots of craving. If its roots remains undamaged and strong, a tree, even if cut, will grow back. You know, sometimes you see a big old tree being cut down, you know, but you've got the stumps sitting in the ground, and you see little bits starting, a little bud grows around the sides of the tree. You start to see little shoots start growing back up again, you know. Because although the most part of the tree's been cut, the roots are undamaged. So too, if latent craving is not rooted out, this suffering returns again and again. And this craving can cause us to go from good rebirths to rebirths in the lower realms. They accompany us from rebecoming to rebecoming. It's important that we ensure we get rid of these cravings completely. So, you know, sometimes they say, you know, that we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over. Rebirth after rebirth after rebirth. We have these subtle cravings that we carry with us occasionally from one life to the next life. We can't let go of them, you know? And it just causes us to continuously be reborn up and down through the various realms because we don't let go of these cravings. So we can see that, you know, it's not just affecting us in this life, but it can affect us life after life after life after life. Encircled with craving, people hop round and around like a rabbit caught in a snare. Tied with fetters and bonds, they go on to suffering again and again and again. So Dhamma, verse 342. We're tied down by the 10 fetters. We're held by the bonds of the fetters. And they seem so pleasant, sometimes, these fetters, that we continue to suffer lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. For a poor person forced on by his thinking, fierce in his passion, focused on beauty, craving grows all the more. He's the one who tightens the bond. But one who delights in the stilling of thinking, stilling of thinking, go back to meditation again, always mindful, cultivating a focus on the foul, he's the one who will make an end, the one who will cut Mara's bond. Dhamma 349 to 350. So you see here it says, always mindful, cultivating a focus on the foul. I was talking earlier about the different types of meditation that we have. You know, there's contemplation of the foulness of the body. This one helps overcome thoughts of lust. There's contemplation on death. This helps us to overcome the ego. You know, when we, you know, in the Buddha's day, they had these charnel grounds. And they would take the body of a person wrapped up in a cloth and they'd go and chuck it on this piece of ground that was specifically for dead people. And they would just leave it there. And the old monks say they'd go and they'd sit in these charnel grounds and they'd take one particular corpse as an object of meditation. Nice fresh corpse, only been dead a few hours, whatever. And they'd sit and they'd watch what happened to the body. It would start to bloat up. All the gases inside the body would start to bloat up a bit. And then, of course, all the fluids would start to leak out of any opening that was available for leaking out of. And eventually, you know, the skin would start to rot away. And animals would come and start chewing on it. Eventually, the limbs would get pulled apart. And you'd see the bones start to go white in the sun. And eventually, I guess, if you stay there long enough, they start to turn to powder. You know? And when we contemplate on these things, we actually start understanding that this body that we care so much about is also going to wind up like that one day, you know. And so we start to let go of the body. And most of us, we're attached to our bodies, you know. We get sick, we go to the doctor. You get a toothache, you go to the dentist. Bottles of cosmetics to make us look pretty. Even men these days, you know, are going to manicurists and stuff like that to make sure their nails look nice. Dye their hair, they don't want to have grey hair anymore. So even the men are going out. We've got people taking, you know, plastic surgery, not because there's any deformity, you know. I can understand somebody whose nose has been so badly broken that they need to go to a plastic surgeon to have the nose repaired to help them breathe properly. Some people have a need for plastic surgery and other people just do it because they're starting to look a bit old. And so they go and inject stuff into their heads. That's botulism. Botulism's a killer disease, huh? And people go and inject it into themselves to make their skin go tight so they've got no wrinkles. How mad is that, you know? Because they can't accept that they're getting old. And this is how much we worry about this body of ours. And so we have these meditations. meditations on foulness, for instance, that help to put an end to craving. When we understand that we're going to die with these lustful thoughts, so we start to contemplate the 32 parts of the body, and they're not particularly pleasant, here or there, that's not too bad, Nails, that's not bad. Then we start getting into phlegm and bile and pus, and it's nice. And so suddenly when we turn the body inside out, it's not quite as attractive as we thought it was in the first place, And this is the meditation that we use, to take away lustful sensations, lustful feelings. So if we can think like this, if we can meditate like this, then we can put an end to the cycle of samsara. We cut Mara's bond. So where does craving arise? And where does it dwell? Or where, when dwelling, does it dwell? Whatever seems endearing and agreeable in terms of the world, that is where this craving, when arises. That's where, when dwelling, it dwells. So he says, these things that are endearing, enjoyable, agreeable, this is where craving arises. We see nice things, we smell nice sounds, smell nice smells, we want it. Craving has arisen. So where does it arise? It arises through the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind, through form, sound, smells, taste, tactile sensations and thoughts. There's an eye consciousness, an ear consciousness, nose consciousness, so on and so forth. And that gives rise to contact. You have an eye contact, an ear contact, nose contact, yada, yada, yada. Because of contact, their feelings arise. Because of feelings, perception arises. Because of perception, intention. And there's a craving for form, craving for sound, craving for smells, craving for taste, craving for tactile sensations, and craving for thoughts. Dhammapada 345 to 347 says, that's not a strong bond, so say the enlightened, the one made of iron, or of wood, or of grass. To be smitten, enthralled with jewels and ornaments, longing for children and wives, or husbands. That's the strong bond. So say the enlightened. One that's constraining, elastic, and hard to untie. That's so true. We love to have nice things in our lives. And of course the bond of a partner, the bond of children, that's a really, really strong bond, difficult to break. But having cut it, they, the enlightened, go forth, free of longing, abandoning sensual ease. Those smitten with passion fall back into the self-made stream, like a spider snared in its web. But having cut it, the enlightened set forth, free of longing, abandoning all suffering and stress. So we see we have to be able to cut these bonds. That doesn't mean we're all going to give up, leave our husbands, leave our wives, leave our children, That's not a reality. The Buddha did it. But the Buddha was due to be the enlightened one. We're quite lucky that the Buddha did it, you know. And at least when he did leave the palace, it wasn't like his wife and son were going to be homeless and hungry. At least they were going to be looked after. Not like some men, they just take off. They're not looking for enlightenment, they just take off because they can't handle a wife and kids. But for others, the bond is very, very strong. And it's very, very difficult to let go of. It's natural, you love your partner, you love your children. You do anything for them. And yet we actually have to be able to cut that bond at some stage. Because when we can't cut that bond, then we find ourselves suffering. You know, sometimes our children die before we do. That causes a great deal of suffering for parents, you know. When you get those people who've been married practically all their lives, and then one of the partners dies, and you see the suffering. I remember my own grandmother was killed many years ago. She was run over, and yeah, she was of that generation where, you know, people got married forever. And you know, our granddad, he had a heart problem, and he had tablets just to help, you know, regulate the heart. Well, about 6 weeks after my gran was killed, my granddad died. He'd stopped taking his tablets. He couldn't live without my grandmother. Such a strong, strong attachment, you know, that he didn't find life was worth going on. So it was a craving for non-becoming took place here with my grandfather. And we do see these very, very strong ties, these strong bonds, so difficult to break. The love of a mother for her child is an amazing love. Very strong love. Get between a mother and her kid. That's a dangerous thing to do. Try and get between a mother and her child. She'll be head off. We're really very protective of it. So these, you know, the arahants say that these are really strong bonds, stronger than iron, stronger than wood. Iron can rust eventually. These bonds that we create are very, very difficult to break. Of course, there's to keep wandering on and on and on. For a person forced on by his thinking, fierce in its passion, focused on beauty, craving grows all the more. He's the one who tightens the bond. Tightens the bond. We do it ourselves. Nobody else tightens it for us. And yet, the arahant, the one who focuses on the fact, he'll put an end to it. Arrived at the finish, unfrightened, unblemished, free of craving, he has cut away the arrows of becoming. This physical leap is his last. Free from craving, ungrasping, astute in expression, knowing the combination of sounds, which comes first and which after. He's called a last body, greatly discerning, great man. So this guy has cut away all these fetters. The craving is gone. He's put an end lot. Unfrightened. So many people, they get to a certain age and they start to worry about death. They go to the church and the temple and any other place they go, because some of them don't want to take the risk of offending the wrong person, so they'll go to everything because they start to worry when it's coming towards their end. But the Arahant is unfrightened because he's free of craving. He says he's cut away the arrows of becoming. Arrows are painful things to have in you. But he's cut them away, whereas others keep jabbing more and more arrows into themselves with craving. All-conquering, all-knowing am I, with regard to all things, unadhering, all abandoning, released in the ending of craving, having fully known on my own, to whom should I point as a teacher? Unadhering, abandoning, all abandoning, released in the ending of craving. Enlightened. Our gift of Dhamma conquers all gifts. The taste of the Dhamma, all tastes. A delight in Dhamma, all delights. The ending of craving, all suffering and stress. The ending of craving gets rid of all suffering and all stress. In the Sanyajana Sutta, it's in Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 10, verse 13. It says there are these 10 fetters. Which 10? There are 5 lower fetters, and there are 5 higher fetters. And what are the 5 lower fetters? Self-identity views. This is the I want, I need, I deserve. Mine. This is the self-identity view. Well, self-identity, as we were saying before, we start to do stupid things like saying, I am angry. We even take ownership of anger. We identify the I with anger. When we identify the I with anger, we own the anger. Instead of saying there is anger, we say I am angry. So the self-identity views, uncertainty. Sometimes we can be uncertain about the teachings of the Buddha. Waver a little bit in our confidence in the Buddha. And we need to be fully confident of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Fully confident in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, you're well and truly on your way to becoming a Sotapanna. Fetters are being cut. Grasping of precepts and practices. That's what I was saying this morning. Some people come into the temple and they do the precepts because that's what you do. It becomes a ritual, it becomes a practice. We grasp at them, There are also instances where we can get so tied up on things like precepts. This morning I was saying about offering the fruit tray, because the sutras do say, the Vinaya says that a monk cannot take what's not offered. And so, just because that fruit tray is sitting in front of me doesn't necessarily mean that that fruit's for me. You know? But I know it is. You know? Because there's a tray sitting in front of every monk, there's a plate of fruit in front of every monk, so I've got to figure out that the one in front of me is probably been put there for me. You know? Now I could get really pedantic and like, somebody offer this to me, please. But in actual fact, that would be me clinging to the precepts, making it a ritual. You know, I was in one temple, and when a monk is given fruit, you can't give a monk an apple. You know, the apple has to be cut or damaged in some way before the monk's allowed to eat it. It's got something to do with one of the other religious sects at the time of the Buddha, because they like, like an apple has seed in it, and the seed is a living thing, and from the seed you can grow a tree, and you can grow, And so the Buddha instigated this rule that said that unless the fruit had been damaged, the monk wasn't allowed to eat it. So you could stick your thumbnail in it and damage it and offer it to the monk, or you could cut it and give it to the monk. And so what would happen is somebody would come and they'd offer the monk an apple, and the monk would say to them, "Can you make that proper for me, please?" And so then the person would make the mark in it or cut it and then say, "It's been made proper, but thanks very much, now I can eat it." Well, I was in one temple, and the lay people had come to bring some food in the morning. We'd done Pindabata, but the lay people had been out. And the monks used to sit on this platform. There were bowls in front of us, and the food would be offered to the head monk first and then be passed down. And it would get to the fruit trays, and there'd be the watermelon. And they've already cut the watermelon up, and they've sliced it and everything else, and they go and put it down in front of the chief monk. And he's going, "Can you make it correct?" It is correct. It's been cut. But it's this thing they've turned this thing into a ritual, and it actually has no meaning when you turn it into a ritual. So monks can be pretty bad when it comes to that sort of thing. We start clinging to rites and rituals, and then they just become meaningless. They become a bit of a joke. Because I used to, I just couldn't believe I'd be sitting there and seeing this tray of fruit come, and it's like, I just knew what was going to happen. They were going to ask the person to make it proper. You cut the watermelon up into pieces. You can't make it much more correct than that. You don't need to go through this whole routine of prattling on and Pali for something that has already been done. So this is clinging to rites and rituals, and this becomes a feta. And so with the bowl of fruit, I know it's mine. Quite often when I finish my plate anyway, somebody will come and pick up my plate and they push the other plate towards me, and then I can touch the plate and it's officially been given to me, it's been officially received by me. But at the end of the day, I could make a lay person's life miserable. I'm busy doing something else, and I want them to give me this plate that's this far away from me. It's just being pedantic, it's just being silly. You know? And so if it's not offered to me, then I'll just bring the plate forward. You know, and I'll eat the fruit anyway. You know? I'm pretty sure nobody's going to tell me off for doing it. So that's the grasping of precepts and practices. And then there's the fetter of sensual desire and ill will, which we've already spoken on. You know, when we have sensual desires, it's a fetter we're always chasing after it. And when there's ill will, we're always running away from it. And we can't run away from these things. Stuff happens out there in the world, you know. We keep trying to run away, it'll keep chasing after us. So we need to try and get rid of these ones. So those are the lower 5 fetters. And then you got the 5 higher fetters, which is passion for form, passion for what is formless. So now we're talking about some of the worlds that we can be reborn into. Also, things that we see, and things that we think. But often it's the passion for a form, you know, we want to be born in a heavenly realm. Sometimes we want to be born in the formless realms. We'll be very careful of these things. These things actually, you know, these passions, these are passions for rebecoming. Even though they might seem like a good place to be reborn, there's still a passion for rebecoming. And if we have a passion for rebecoming, then we will continue rebecoming again and again and again. And then there's conceit. I'm better than you. Restlessness. Can't keep still. And restlessness, that really affects our meditation practice. We can't sit in one place. We keep moving around. We can't settle for long. So we can't calm our minds down. We can't enjoy the fruit of the meditation. If we sit and the fruit can fall into our lap, if we keep getting up and moving, the fruit can't fall into our lap. So we have to overcome restlessness. It's very difficult. So often we just want to get up and do something else. Very hard to still the body, very hard to still the mind. It is incredible, if we're watching a movie on the television, we can sit there for hours and not move. As soon as we sit down to meditate, we start to get aches and pains and all sorts of things, and we want to get up and change position and move about. So, sit down to watch the telly, we can sit there for hours at a time. We don't get restless at all. So restlessness, we've got to try and overcome restlessness. And of course, ignorance, that's the big one. Because it's ignorance. Ignorance is what they call the house builder. Upon his enlightenment, the Buddha said, I've seen you, O house builder. The house builder was ignorance. And the rafters were craving. So it's ignorance. And that ignorance, often we refer to ignorance of karma and rebirth. So many people don't believe in the consequences of karma. Even in the Buddha's day, based upon ignorance. And as I say, there are a lot of people that just don't believe that our actions can determine what happens in the future. And this is why we have so much crime in the world. Because the only consequences your average criminal thinks about is whether or not he's going to get caught by the police. But that could be the least of the criminal's worries, being caught by the police. You know, that might be a little bit of worldly karma vipaka taking place, but it still doesn't take care of the karma, the criminal. You know, when if somebody here kills their mother, they go to prison for 20 years. You know, because, oh, well, they got justice. But we all know, when you're going to kill your mother, you're actually destined for the hell realms. You know? But people don't believe in this through ignorance. And so they commit all these foolish acts, these unwholesome acts, purely because they are ignorant to the workings of rebirth and karma. So those are the top 5 factors that we have to count. But we can see how important it is to understand how craving arises and how important it is to cut craving off. There's no harm in, say, enjoying. You can enjoy pleasant sounds, pleasant smells, pleasant sights, pleasant tastes, pleasant sensations on the body. There's no harm in enjoying it, but it's the craving, the constantly wanting it. This is where the danger comes in. And so we have to understand that, you know, all these things, these nice sights, smells, sounds, all these sorts of things, they arise due to conditions. When the conditions change, then the thing that we enjoyed is no longer there. You know, look at a beautiful flower. It blooms. It stays beautiful for a period of time. And then slowly it starts to die. It wilts, no longer looking very pretty. And we understand that that's the nature of the flower. We have to understand this is the same with everything. It will arise, it will last for as long as it lasts, and it will pass away. And when we can accept the fact that it will pass away, then we're starting to cut the fetter of craving. And we're starting to understand that it has its life, and its life is over, it's over. And we can cut that fetter of craving. We are well and truly on the road to enlightenment. In a few minutes, any questions, any comments? Before we wrap it up. When we make an aspiration, what sort of aspiration? No. I mean, I aspired to become a monk. You know, it was an aspiration. It was a desire in my life. But it wasn't an unwholesome desire. It was a wholesome desire. But even that, you know, you've got to be careful. You know, I know some people, they'd love to become a monk, but they're in debt, for instance. They have student loans. You know, they still owe the government thousands and thousands of dollars for the university education. Now, you can't become a monk if you have any debt. You know, it's an offence. It's one of the questions that you get asked at your ordination. Are you debt-free? You're supposed to answer truthfully when they ask you these questions. You know, you're becoming a monk. I want to start lying. And so, although it's a wholesome desire, for some of them they get really, really upset because they're not capable of becoming a monk at this stage. But the desire for enlightenment, for instance, is a wholesome desire, you know, and it helps us to practice. So, not all desires, not all cravings are unwholesome. You know? There are actually wholesome desires out there. So, some of these spiritual aspirations, there's nothing wrong with those. But again, we still have to understand that that aspiration might not come to be straight away. You know? So we can aspire, we can work towards it, but we shouldn't cling too hard. You know? Because sometimes things get in our way. And so, like, you know, with lay people, you know, somebody might want to become a bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, but their situation may not allow it, you know. I mean, you can't walk away from your family, you know, because it's a strong bond. You know. Maybe your family truly needs you, and so you can't give up the lay life, become a nun or a monk. And so we still need, even though it's a wholesome desire, we still need to be able to let go of that desire. Otherwise it becomes unwholesome. Because then we start to get upset, we start to get angry. Me to go forward. I think when I started to seriously study the Dhamma, I say seriously started to study because I did that I'm a Buddhist, but it wasn't very serious. But as I developed my practice, and it was more actually as I started to develop my meditation practice, that I started to take the precepts a little more seriously. And I found, I used to work 4 or 5 months a year. I didn't like working. I'd work for 4 or 5 months and I'd take the rest of the year off and I'd go travelling. And I wound up spending about 6 months of my travel time in temples, meditating. And I thought to myself, I'm going to spend so much time in a temple, why don't I just become a monk? It'll make more sense. You know, but even then it still took me a few years to, you know, give up a lot of the things that I enjoyed in life, you know. But as I say, the more I sort of started to understand, like, these essential desires, you know, they were a lot of hard work at times, some of my essential desires, you know. It's like chasing after women. I spent days and days, and, you know, to go out and buy them dinner, and a few drinks for It cost me a fortune, you know. And for what? And oh my gosh, you know. I mean, my relationships used to last about 3 months. You know. That was me doing really well in life. You know, it's like, I started to think, am I really, really enjoying this? You know? And I like the alcohol. So, you know, that was starting to lose its appeal. You know? So, I found that I didn't enjoy getting drunk and waking up in the morning going, oh, never again. Until the next weekend. So all these things, they started to lose their appeal. You know, as I practiced the meditation and as I listened to the Dhamma, then eventually I just decided it's time. And it was quite funny because I was working in England, and about halfway during the day, and my boss came up, you know, how's it going to go? Oh, really good. I said, yeah. I said, I'm giving you a week's notice. Why? I said, I'm going to become a monk. He was like, no, but seriously. I said, yeah, but seriously, I said, I'm going to become a monk. You know, it just came. It was like, I'd had enough. My job was enjoyable. I was outside. I was pretty much my own boss. You know, they'd tell me what I needed to do for the week. And if I'd go and I'd do it. Up and down on a tractor all day long. Organic farm, you know, so I was spraying stuff that wouldn't kill things. A little tractor, a little stereo system. My sandwiches and coffee. Nobody to disturb me. It was wonderful. I couldn't complain about it. Good money. But it lost its appeal. Absolutely just lost its appeal. And so in the end it was like, yeah, you know, I'm spending so much time in the temples now that I'm going to go forth. So I came to Malaysia and I ordained. It was 4 rains ago. I'm about to enter my 5th rains retreat. It's been a good life, and an enjoyable life.
In order to be a monk or nun, do they need someone, the one who ordained, to really give the permission or support, or they just go to any temple and just get ordained? Or usually there's an old master or a chief reverend.
First of all, wherever you go, the temple has to have what's often referred to as a sema. Sema it's a place where only monks are allowed to enter, although some places allow lay people to enter. Generally speaking, most places it's only for monks, and it's locked up. It's always locked. The only time it's opened up is when there's an ordination that takes place. So it has to be at a temple with one of these semas in it. There has to be a quorum of monks present. And I'm not sure, it may vary from country to country as to what qualifications your preceptor should have. I know in Thailand not all abbots are preceptors. No, the guy who puts you on precepts. Not all abbots can actually ordain a monk. There's only certain abbots who've got the qualification, if you like, which kind of is a bit different to the way it was in the Buddha's day. You know, so I mean, but different countries have introduced different rules on how it goes about. But you're supposed to, and again, depending on where you go, you're in Anagadika, so you dress in white for some time. And then after they've observed you as basically an 8 preceptor, if they think there's a chance you might make a monk, then you become a novice, a samanera, and you should be a samanera probably for about 4 months, while some places waive the 4-month period. And if after that period of time they think that you're going to be a suitable candidate, then they'll offer you the going forth. And at that stage, you're supposed to stay with your preceptor for 5 years. You're a junior monk. Oh, I didn't. I moved on, but I moved on with my preceptor's permission. Monks not supposed to just move on, not within that first 5-year period. But since being released by my actual preceptor, I can actually move anywhere I like now without permission from a head monk, although you have a tendency to tell the head monk if you're going to move on or not, just out of politeness. So there is a preceptor. And as I say, there's a quorum of monks. They ask you a bunch of questions about your suitability to become a monk. And then you take the going forth. And you're taken back into the sema and go through the ceremony. And then you walk out again. You're a monk. Anybody else? In that case.